This video is going to be the first in hopefully a series of mini project video tutorial things for the animation class at ASU. I mean, anybody's welcome to use these online if they find them, but it's mostly going to be for that class. In these project sort of mini idea things, I don't know, they're not really projects, they're just sort of like half-baked ideas that are going to use different things inside Lightwave. I'm going to cover random different tools. I think this is going to be a little bit better than my original videos where I just go over a single tool at a time. So for this one, as hopefully the title says, I'm going to try to make something kind of like a bubble shield in Halo, and I'm going to do this tutorial assuming that the people watching it have never used Lightwave before, so I'm going to try to go over every shortcut possible if I can, and I'll mention every tool if I can. If I forget some, I'll probably put an annotation or something down at the bottom of the video. But I'm going to start trying to make something like this. Just sort of a interesting like bubble object that distorts light and images that are going through it. Just sort of a neat introduction to some different texture stuff inside Lightwave. So in the beginning, you want to go ahead and open up Modeler. We're going to model our object first off, and then bring it to layout to be able to render it later. By now you've probably noticed like Lightwave is kind of split into two separate pieces. Most other programs are one, but it's split into two for whatever reason. It's actually kind of nice, but that's my opinion. So to start off, here's some other ones, some other random stuff on the internet. I'm going to start with a sphere and then cut it in half so we get the top sort of section there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a, or ball, I guess, as they call it in Lightwave. I'll go ahead and create a ball here. And if you want to make this a perfect circle, you can hold Control before stretching out your little creation widgets, I guess. I don't know what they're called. So I'm going to Control, and that'll scale it so it's a perfect circle. You can see down here, whenever I'm scaling it, the width and depth of it. And if I hold down here now, it's going to change the height also. So if I let go and if I hold Control and click again, it's going to make a perfect sphere here. So we got that. Now if I press Enter, it's going to make these widgets go away, and we'll be able to edit the polygons and everything else now. And I made it in this view just because this is going to make it easier for us to select over here. So like we got this selection now. I'm going to swap over to polygon selection by pressing spacebar. I would click it, but it's all the way over here. It's really annoying. So, I mean, you can switch between the modes here if you want to. So we'll go to polygon mode, and I'm going to right-click lasso the entire bottom of this object right here. And now that that's selected down here, and since we selected it in wireframe, it's selected all the way through the object, like you can see over here. I'm going to delete it, press delete key. So now that's gone, and we just have this sphere. Now, one pretty neat tool. I'm going to do this two ways because I'm going to make the sphere a little bit thicker so that it's going to actually have some surface to refract the light going into it. But I'm going to do it two ways because some older versions of Lightwave don't have this tool. But for the newer ones, if you guys do have it, and a really easy way is to go over here to, I think it's under multiply. I'm not sure. Yeah, multiply. Thicken. Doesn't actually have a shortcut tied to it. So you click it and then drag. You can kind of see it stretching out here. If we rotate down here in this view, you can see that it's actually physically thick now. It's not just like one sheer polygon like this. So we'll go ahead and do that and thicken. But like I said, some people may not have that tool. So the other way to do this is to copy this right here. I'm going to select it. So I clicked on it once and then hit the right bracket key, which selected the whole object. Control C, copy, go to another layer, Control V, paste it. And I'm going to flip this side so that we have those internal polygons. Now I'm going to go on this side still here. I can go to smooth shift and shift up or down. I could go up on the, you know what? Yeah, I'll just go down here. So sort of extending inwards, and it's doing the same thing it was doing before. So this is the internal shell piece, and then you have your top half piece here. And if you wanted to, you know, instead of extending on this view, you could have gone over here and smooth shift out this way, and it'll carry this. It'll find what edges aren't connected to anything and sort of draw a line from there. It's good for making shells and whatever, you know, just thick objects like this. This is the old way of doing it. If you have the thicken tool, I would just use that, but if you wanted to know another way, this is a pretty good way. So I'm going to copy this one here with copy cut, Control X and Control V here. Now I'm going to deselect it to make sure that everything, because I mean general rule is if nothing is selected, technically everything is. So I'm going to deselect it and press M for merge. Let's see, merge is probably, I think it's also under detail. Yeah, merge points. And leave it on automatic. And this is going to combine all those points, whatever, that are down in here. It's going to like weld them all together for us automatically if they're in the same place, which they are because we just cut them, put them on here. So there's 24 points just now that got connected together. And you can see they're all one piece. If I click here and right bracket now, it's going to select everything. So I'll move this around. So I'm going to go ahead and texture this, whatever blue color we want the sphere to be. So I'll just name it bubble, and then sort of make it blue. You can also click here if you wanted to. I don't really like this color wheel thing. I mean, it's nice. It's all fancy and whatnot, but I'm not used to using it. Click there. So now we got this shield thing. It's unnamed. I'm going to click S to save it and name it. I already did one before, but I'll name it another one. Bubble. Okay, so now we have this in Modeler. Our object's pretty much done. I'm going to just go ahead and send it to the layout. The layout? I guess it's just called layout. I don't know. Whatever. Now we got this here. It's going to defaultly open up the surface editor for us, or if it doesn't, for whatever reason, you can open the surface editor with F5. And this allows you to change all the textures and variables about the object. You can do that in here too, the surface editor, but it's kind of less useful in Modeler than it is in Layout, because Layout's going to actually render everything for you. So first off, obviously the object's transparent in the photo. I don't know where the photo is. Here's another one. So it's sort of transparent, but it's also refractive. As you can see, like the light's going through and hitting him, and it's bending whenever it's going through the object and going to the character here. So I'm going to turn up the transparency. So I'm going to smooth it. I don't like seeing those polygons, so I'm going to go ahead and smooth it. And turn up the refraction. And you're not going to be able to see refraction really do anything here, because we don't really have any objects to be refracted. So I'm going to go ahead and make something in Modeler. Go back to Modeler down here, or you can click just Modeler here if you want to. Then we got this. I'm going to, in another layer, just to make it easier to mess with stuff, I'm going to create sort of a background. It doesn't really matter what you make. It can be anything. I'm just going to make sort of like a plane here that's going to sit on. And then make a wall back here. Just something that we can kind of see what's going on. Some sort of scene for this to be in. I'm going to copy this. And Control C, Control V. Hit it. It's going to move down here. And then click Y to move to rotate. Also, anytime you see this little T pop up, that's because I pressed the move key T. I'm going to do it so often that I'm probably going to forget to say it. But the shortcuts for translate is T and rotate is Y. So now we're on rotate. I'm going to hold Control, so it will go 90 degrees like that. Whenever I'm rotating it, it'll lock it to, I think, increments of 15 degrees. I don't remember. But it makes it easier to rotate things perfectly like that. And now I'm going to select all this and name it another texture. Just wall. I'll make it orange or something. Doesn't really matter. Actually, I'm going to change it to gray later, but that's fine. So now we go here. It's going to show up and sort of have a background to mess with. You know, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so you can see what's going on. Doesn't really matter, but it'll be nice. Oh yeah, to scale, Control H. Control H? Shift H, sorry. Shift H to scale up whatever you have selected. And when I'm selecting stuff, I'm either just using left click, which is going to select everything across here, and then right bracket, which selects all of the objects. You can kind of see, like, if I do this, if I just click there and there, there's going to be a couple spots like that that aren't selected, and I'm just being really lazy and not going around and getting them. If you just press right bracket, it's going to get all of it, and that's fine. You can also just sit here and lasso if you wanted to, which is right click and drag So now we have that. I'm going to go here. Sorry, this tutorial is going to be rather long because I'm going over everything, all the key shortcuts and whatnot. But I'd rather mention them and, not get somebody left out. So I'm going to... okay. So let's see here. If we're looking at it through VPR, now you can kind of see the objects are being refracted through this here. So, it's like bubble in the surface editor. If I turn the refraction index down, there's zero refraction. It's just straight, transparent, real boring, kind of like glass. And you could turn up the refraction index, and it will refract the light going through the object. Or theoretical light, whatever. It's not going to really matter. You can also change the transparency. So I'm going to leave everything else pretty much the same for now. We'll mess with it later. Now, to get these... oh, excuse me. Interesting sort of things going on here, where here they have hexagons. I'm not going to do hexagons just because that would actually require UV mapping the way these are laid out, but I'm going to do some other stuff. With this little more interesting effect here, rather than it just being a straight bubble going on, we can go to the refraction index. I'm going to mess with the color later, but if we go to the refraction index here and click T for the texture something, I don't remember, it's texture editor, I guess. I thought it was called texture index, whatever. So you open this here, you can add different layers onto the object and texture it, either with UV maps or procedural textures. I'm going to do procedural in here just because it'd be way quicker, and luckily Lightwave has some pretty good procedural textures. You can probably do this in any other program. It might be a little bit harder though. So I'm gonna go here and load a procedural texture on it, and this texture is being added onto the refraction index. And the black and white indicate more or less refraction. I don't remember which one's which. It's different from every program sometimes. So actually, I think in this case, black is more, white is less. I think. So it's different from program to program, so I'm not exactly sure. But you can see here it's adding this little turbulence texture onto the refraction index now that we're editing this. So it's going to refract the light differently as it goes through it. So you're going to get some interesting stuff. And you can mess with whatever. It has a bunch of preset ones for you, or you can make your own. So brick, bump array. That one's actually pretty cool. I really like the way it looks. And all these different, see that sort of honeycomb pattern we were looking at. You can feel free to experiment with these. I mean, do whatever you want, whatever looks cool. I'm just going to set it to not FBM noise. I don't really like that one. I'll probably do fractal noise because it's rather simple. Go ahead and turn the value up. You know what? Actually, I'm going to do a crumple so it looks neat. I don't know, some sort of weird thing from video gamey look. I don't know. So we can actually animate this over time too. The same way you can animate something on the timeline down here, which if you don't know about the timeline, that's fine. Don't really worry about it. We'll probably go over it later. But I'll just show you a quick example of it here. Like if I wanted to move something across the timeline in 3D, I could move the timeline 20 frames over and move the object up. And now, over 20 frames, that object's going to move. So it's going to move from its original position to the new position over 20 frames to animate it across time. I'm going to go ahead and delete that because I don't want it. But you can do the same thing with textures inside the texture editor. And that comes from this little E, which they're called envelopes. I don't know why, but it's whatever. So we can move it across here. So say we wanted to animate like the bubble texture moving around, we can animate here on the Y axis on the position. And I moved from scale. Originally, it's going to be set on scale, which is actually the scale of the texture onto the object, but you probably don't want to mess with that yet. Can if you want to. It'll make the texture smaller or bigger. You know, kind of make the little fractal noises more or less pronounced. Or, I mean, bigger or smaller, I mean. So if we go to position here, we can actually move it up and down. So I'm going to click, I'm going to set it back to 0, just make it easier. And click E to open the graph editor. Oh, maybe it stands for graph editor. I don't know. Whatever. I always call them envelopes. I could be wrong on that. Somebody correct me if they know. No, this is different. This is the timeline editor, but it's inside of the graph editor, which a lot of people are kind of scared off by because it looks all technical and graphy, and that's not a weird word. But it's probably the best tool Lightwave has. So I would try to get used to this if you can. It'll make your life so much easier later on if you really want to do animation. So in here, I'm going to animate the texture. It's going to start at 0, and I'm going to go to 20. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do 30, because 30 frames is 1 second, so it'll do more of a looping effect. That 30 frames, I need to add a key on this line, which right now we are messing with the Y channel of the procedural crumples position. If I add a key here and click right here, you can click and drag it, but if you don't drag it from the first time, you're not going to be able to drag it here. It'll be clicking around and you'll add more keys. So what you need to do is go back to selection down here, which is this little thing. Or it's actually move, but inside move you can select. So like say if it wasn't selected, I could right click, drag over it, select it, and now I can drag it up. So over 1 second, the texture is going to be moved 2 meters up. Just kind of fast. I'm going to move it to half a meter so it'll be more slow and mystical. I'm going to close this. So now you can kind of see it's animating here. I'd play it, but I mean you're just going to see a blur because VPR is not going to render that fast. But let's look at it through camera view. Bring the camera up here. Select camera and click T, so I'm moving around the camera, sort of like first person. And if I click Y, it rotates around here. Oh, wait, I did it over the timeline. That's not good. Just delete that. Let's go back here. You got to be careful about that. If you're moving something, like the camera, or you're moving something around, and it's on the timeline, you're going to have problems later on, because it's going to randomly set keyframes, and you're not going to know what's going on. Also, this little extra bar I opened above the timeline is called the dope editor. I'm going to go over it more later, but it essentially allows you to delete and add keyframes by like selecting them and right-clicking. So we can see here it's kind of animating the crumple texture. So I'm going to do another one of these procedural textures on the wall so you kind of see what's going on a little bit more. So click T here. And normally, the way Lightwave's going to do its procedural textures is they'll set the black to be transparent, which some people like, some people don't. But it's, the transparency is going to be set on top of this color, so I can move that around here. So you can kind of see where it's going. So I'll set a grid effect on the walls here, so we can kind of see what's going on through the deal. And I'm going to set the grid color to be like a light blue. Tron looking thing. This is not doing it. Okay, maybe I do like this color wheel. I just don't want to admit it. Yeah, I like the color wheel. All right, and the background I'm going to set to like a gray, like that. And those lines are kind of thick. I'm going to turn that thickness on. So now you get the sort of grid effect that we can see being distorted across through here. It looks it's a lot more noticeable on something like this. That's like a grid effect. And then it's still animated over time. Now, if you wanted to, I mean, that's pretty much the whole project now, is just to get kind of introduced to the texture surface editor thing, and that you can do envelopes over time. But let's see if there's anything more interesting we could do. Put on a reflection. We make it luminous, I guess, if you wanted to. Oh, wait, I'll animate the shield like growing over time. I guess it's a easy enough thing to do. So if we go to texture shaded solid, just so it's easier so I can see my widgets. Oh man, that was a horrible color choice on the walls. I can't see what's going on now. Everything looks like a box. Oh well. So if we start at 0 and click Shift H, I'm going to scale this bubble down smaller so it's like it's being exploded out of a grenade or something in Halo. So Shift H, it's going to be about that big, frame 0, and then at frame 5, this is going to be rather quick. I'm going to scale it up again, make it real big, and then over the next couple of frames to frame 10, sort of shrink it down. So it's going to like get real big and then shrink back like that. That may be kind of a cool effect. Let's see. It doesn't look too bad. Now, I do need to go over some other stuff though real quick. So, right now, since polygons are only one-sided, and I don't know if we've gone over that yet or not, we're only seeing the side that we're looking through and the exact opposite side. We're not seeing the inner, I'll just point it out here, the inner surface here, that like second layer that I can't click on because this stuff's in the way, so like that layer right there, we can't see it from this side. It's going to be completely invisible. We're only going to be able to see the opposite side in here because polygons are not double-sided. However, Lightwave can do double-sided polygons, which is really just rendering twice. It's not really, I don't think polygons are actually double-sided. Can be. I think they just render them like twice with the normal facing both ways. We can click that on, and it's going to make the image super distorted because you're essentially seeing through double the amount of space now, and so that's double the amount of surface that can distort the thing, which is what you want. That's fine. You can turn on double-sided here and sort of add to the effect. It makes it sort of interesting, so I mean you can use this wherever you want. One other thing, I'm gonna go over, it doesn't really look like a bubble shield because it's so thick here. If you wanted to like easily change the thickness, you could use the thicken tool, which is amazing, but if you don't have that, select the inside here. I'm gonna do loop select, which you use by selecting some polygons that are in a row along a loop. You don't want them to be this way. It might work, it probably won't. I'm gonna select them this way, going across like that. Selection, and select loop. And now shift right bracket will expand this selection, which right here, expand. I guess it's a little curly brace thingy, huh? Yeah. Now we got this. I'm going to do shift H for scale and scale it up. So it was an easy way to select all that. And as long as I don't pass those other polygons, this is going to look like it's still one piece. So I don't want to do that. It's going to look weird. So I'll move it up here. So now the shield looks much thinner. Looks more like a solid thing of energy instead of like a big old glass dome. So you can see right there. It's kind of a neater looking effect. Okay, there's one other thing I need to go over. On refraction index, or any of these, any one you want, even color. I'm going to do color real quick just so to be obvious. I don't want to add a map. Let's see. Procedural texture. you can put it on color. Or if you want it to go away, you can click the T and that'll get rid of it. I don't know if it doesn't say the old one. So make sure you don't get rid of something you really wanted. I'm going to add something to transparency. So the transparency of the object is going to be different from place to place. So let's do procedural. It's going to be something simple. I mean, dots is obvious, but it's not that cool looking. Veins. Oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do that. I didn't even think about this one. So you see there, you can change the transparency from place to place on this object. With the, obviously with the transparency texture editor. So that's kind of neat. But you can also layer it. I'll turn that off so we can see what's going on here. So you can have multiple layers here. So we have this one crumple texture as our bottom, right now as our top layer. You can click add layer and add another procedural layer, and just like in Photoshop or whatever program, you can have multiple layers of these things. So if I wanted to add a marble layer on top of the other one, you can kind of see the crumple layer. Well, actually, it's being overridden by this one because it's so powerful, but you can kind of see it underneath it. So you know, now that you have multiple layers of it, there's a lot more interesting things you could do. You can make rust textures or whatever, however you want to do it. So I think that's pretty much it for this little video. Let me know if you guys have any ideas for projects in the future, or if there's something you see in a video game or a 3D movie or something that you're like, oh, I wonder how they did that effect. As long as it's not something that would take me like forever, like how do we make robots in Pacific Rim? Don't ask that question. But if there's any like little effect, if you guys are just curious, feel free to ask me in class, or I guess leave it in the comments if you're not in the class. I'll be happy to help you with animation if you want to. But yeah, I guess that's it for this video. I'll see you guys next time whenever I upload something.